Pop Culture Pastor.
So, Cody's back. I hadn't seen Cody. Actually, it's Dr. Cody.
It is not. That would be a fiblet.
Well, I don't understand all the graduate work stuff. So, what are you like a PhD? What is it you are? Are you an Esquire?
I wish. I don't even know how you become an Esquire.
I'm not sure either. I think you have to find a knight.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I found the Knights Inn before.
And you just become their assistant, and then you're an Esquire.
Fancy.
There's people yelling at their radio right now. It's like, yeah, I know that's a squire. Anyways, come
on. So I am a master of social work.
Yeah.
Clinical social work.
Okay.
So there's an emphasis on the clinical social work.
Yeah.
So it's like when I had my Bachelor of Arts in religion, the emphasis was on religion in that bachelor study. Now I'm a master of social work, clinical social work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you heard it here first. He's a Jedi Master
of
social work.
That is how I'm wording it.
So that's why, Cody hasn't been around as much this last semester.
I've been dead to the world.
And now he's back. He graduated. And so
I got pinned.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing that people did besides nurses. Like, because there's nursing, like, pinning ceremonies, and they always, like, put pictures on, and it's like, oh, that's a big deal. And then this program had a pinning ceremony, and I'm like, this is kind of a big deal. And random thing happened during this pinning ceremony. So there was a clinical intensive week that happened in the middle part of April. That I spent the whole week there, and one of the professors, I think he's originally from South Korea, and he jokingly said that he was going to sing, and like every student asked him to keep sing or to actually sing, and he's like, well, if you all pass this week. Well, everyone passed that week, and so during our pinning ceremony, he sang. And he sang to You Raise Me Up by Josh Groban. And no microphone. This dude goes full operatic voice.
Nuh-uh.
And like it's booming across this ballroom that we're in. And it was like, what? My mind melted. Now, he wasn't quite Josh Groban, but like that's a bold song to even attempt. And then he held his own.
Wow. Very cool. Well, sometimes you need a way to express how you raise me up so I can stand on mountains.
You raise me up.
You know
the next line.
Oh, you're both looking at each other like, oh, it's been a while since my Groban listening days. My Groban days.
Everyone had that phase back in the early 10s.
So anyways, Cody has completed his master's degree and has now officially done more schooling than I will ever do. I will never do. I would never. You could pay me $1 million to go back and do that much school. Dave, we'll give you $1 million if you just go do a master's degree in anything. I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to pass. No, thanks. Not an MDiv, Dave? Like,
oh, no.
Definitely not an MDiv.
So Masters of Divinity is ridiculous because most master's programs are either a year or 2 years. Just are, unless you're like going to practice medicine.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a 4-year program.
Yeah.
A Masters of Divinity. And I'm like,
yeah, why?
I get that there's a lot, like 2,000 years of biblical study, but knock that off, jabronis.
Yeah. And by the way, Yeah, you go pay for 4 more years of school so you can be a pastor and be asked to be bivocational and, not be able to afford anything. And, we're going to pay you $55,000 a year, but we want you to have a master's of divinity and get out of here. The church in America is so warped.
Yeah. So don't go that route.
And by the way, study something you can study anytime for free.
Word.
Just saying. Anyways, welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor. Good afternoon. We're so happy to be here. We hope you're happy as well. Stick around. So, Cody, are you familiar with Bear Grylls?
I don't like bears grilling anything. That seems like we are putting too much trust in bears.
Cue the drum, the rim shot.
Yeah.
Bear Grylls is a dude.
He is.
He's a guy.
Survivalist. Bear Grylls.
If celebrity survivalist, as he's described, from a show called Into the Wild, which I like the movie better. The TV show based off the movies never is good. It's not based on the movie, but same name. So yeah, this guy's made a name for himself and a living by being a survivalist. Now, what is a survivalist? That's just this dude you could conceivably live off the land, right? That's his whole shtick.
Drinks his own urine.
No,
he did.
Why? Why would you do that? Doesn't that dehydrate you? I heard that dehydrated you from other 8th graders.
To survive in the wilderness.
Side note, yes, these are the sort of things your 8th graders talk about in the lunchroom. That's the conversations they have. Like, hey, if you were ever in trouble, you could drink your own pee.
Well, yep.
But you don't want to do that too much, I don't think, because it would dehydrate you.
Well, he's only doing it like once.
Why did he do it at all?
Because surviving in TV ratings.
Yeah, right. Well, that's maybe the overall part of the problem here, because Bear Grylls came out in this interview and he had something to say.
Eek.
So in the past, apparently our guy Bear had been saying that he really promoted veganism.
That was foolish.
Why do we feel so strongly about this?
Because I really do like meat. I would probably die if I became a vegan.
I mean, granted, I just this weekend I smoked a pork butt, a pork shoulder, had some nice pulled pork, and it's delicious. I'm still eating off it. It's just like this right now. It's in this big gallon Ziploc bag. It's just a clump of meat. I don't even have to warm it up. I just open up the bag and grab a handful, just snack on it.
That's how God intended it to be.
And I just love it. I love it. So yeah, I'm with you on the meat thing. But Bear Grylls, and I didn't know this, apparently was vegan for a long time. Well, now he's done an interview that says he regrets it. He regrets speaking about the benefits of veganism for the planet or for individual health, because he now is going back on that. He doesn't think it's good for the planet or for people's health.
Is Bear also a PhD?
I don't think so, Cody. Bear does write books, though. So maybe Bear Grylls is interested in selling books, because he sold some books, by the way. He had a 2015 cookbook called The Fuel for Life, and he shared over 70 dairy, wheat, and sugar-free recipes. Well, just kill me now. Like, you just took away 3 of my major food groups: dairy, gluten, and sugar. How am I living without those 3?
No one knows.
But now Bear Grylls is going back on all that. He says he's embarrassed that he used to promote plant-based diets.
I'm embarrassed too.
We're embarrassed for you, Bear. Well, you're a survivalist. Whatever you think of however old humans in the earth are, it's pretty much agreed upon that we were hunter-gatherers first and foremost.
Yeah.
That's like literally our origins have to do with eating meat. Are there Christians out there who don't like that? Who are vegan or vegetarians because that, in the garden, they weren't eating the animals?
So
is that a thing?
I could be mistaken, but I think that the vegetarian colony that was outside of the community we live in back in the 1850s/60s, I think that they started because of religious belief.
Really? Okay.
And then
what is that?
Winter struck, and then they were like, "Oh, we're going to die." So
there's no plants. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
You live anywhere where the sun goes away for half the year. That's not going to work out for you. What if you live in the Sahara? You're not living on a plant diet. You're probably not living on any diet.
I don't know how people do it.
Anyways, Bear Grylls says he's embarrassed. He's going back on his vegan promotion after, long after his book got published, which seems convenient to me. But I'll come back to that. Later on, in the interview, Grylls says he's now an advocate of what he calls, quote, the ancestral way of living. He says, I found a counterculture way of living of embracing red meat. Is that countercultural? Is embracing red meat countercultural? Maybe out there in California.
I was going to say within certain sects of the population, maybe, but not all.
He says he's going back to red meat and organs, natural food, just like our millennia of ancestors would have eaten for hundreds of thousands of years, he said. I've tried to listen to my body more, tried to listen to nature, and I don't miss vegetables at all. I don't go near them, and I've never felt stronger. My skin's never been better, and my gut's never been better. So there you go. He says plants are bad.
There's another celebrity that does something similar, or was doing something similar. Old Jordan Peterson for a while was doing like nothing but steak or something.
I mean, that's not a bad way to go, really. I mean, for me personally, I do like the steak. And if I ate just steak and just meats, it'd probably be better for me. Although it depends, are you putting stuff on it? Because if you dump a bunch of A1 sauce, I don't know why you would. That's criminal. But some people do. Patrick Mahomes dumps ketchup on his steak, so...
I just want you to know, during the Civil War, people thought, we need sauce. So A1 and Tabasco start. So I just want you to be aware that back then they knew how much of a delicacy sauces were. That
is so one of the weird but true stories from the history of this country, that in the middle of the Civil War, the worst... those are the worst years maybe of the United States where, young boys are dying. You got 14-year-olds.
Brothers fighting brothers.
Brothers fighting brothers. And somewhere out in the middle of festering death is a dude who says, you know what? This steak needs a little moisture. Let's make a sauce. We need a sauce. A1. That is the weirdest origin story ever.
Yeah.
But from death comes rebirth.
Exactly.
Although, don't put A1 on your steak. Come on. Steak's too good for that. Drown it in that stuff. They made it in the Civil War when they were eating tough meat. They were probably eating otter meat. Who knows? Otter, very gamey. very, very gamey.
Don't eat it.
Don't eat it. Besides, otters are not food. They're friends because they're cute.
They are.
That's you ever heard that before? There used to be an old comedian who talked about that, where that's how we determine what we eat, because it's like we had all the animals audition, and what are you? I'm an otter. I do cute little things with my hands. You're free to go. And then the cow gets up there. They're like, who are you? I'm a cow. What do? I stand around and I moo. It's like, no, you're not. You're a baseball glove. You're a steak. They're not cute, so nobody cares about them. Although I think cows are adorable.
Baby calves are. Because they run and jump, and They do silly things.
But they smell bad. They all smell bad. That's the problem with cows.
That's what Western Kansas smells like.
Great. Let's just alienate the whole western half of the state. So there's a couple things I want to point out in this article about Bear Grylls.
American hero who's not from America, Bear Grylls.
He's not. Where's he from? Do you know?
He has an outrageous accent if he is.
Oh, okay. So like just a small little admission here. I don't like survivalist shows. I think they're dumb.
He's a British adventurer.
Oh, he's British. Okay.
Yes, and presenter and businessman.
Because if you know anything, you know the best survivalists come from Britain, where you might have to rough it in the wilds.
More specifically, London, England.
So Bear, how did you get your survivalist skills? Well, one day I was stuck out in Wales.
His father is someone that's been knighted, Sir Michael Grylls.
Grylls is just a really cool last name, right?
It is.
And
you just got Grylls.
And also, how could you ever be a vegan with the last name Grylls? Like, did this dude ever thought this is the route for me? Is insane. Your name immediately makes people think about meat.
Evidently, his whole family, besides him, are like renowned cricketers.
That's a made-up sport. I've never heard of that.
Cricket?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That was a wicked googly. Anyways, so in this article, this dude's interviewing Bear Grylls. This is why I love journalism, by the way. This is so hilarious. Grylls claimed, this is an actual line from the story. Grylls claimed, without citing evidence, that a plant-based diet isn't good for the environment or for his health. Now, why did you include that in the story? That's nothing but the author's opinion. It's like the author didn't like Bear's opinion. We know it because if Grylls says it, we clearly understand that it's his opinion, that this dude's not a dietary expert. He's not a dietitian. We know that. Why did you feel it necessary to put that line in the story? Because you wanted to make sure your opinion got in there too. Okay, your opinion is people should eat plants. Author, got it.
I can go with the very uneducated opinion of, well, the animal that I'm eating ate the plants. So it's circle of life.
Yeah, so he claims, Bear Grylls says that he doesn't do the plant thing, the veganism anymore, and he's embarrassed that he did it because it's not good for people. It's not good for the environment, which, of course, the author points out. The writer points out is just like your opinion, man.
Yeah.
But like, look, the writer has preset notions, just like, look, Bear Grylls isn't doing this out of the kindness of his heart. The dude wrote a book on veganism 6 years ago and tried to make money. Guess what he's doing now? Why is he even giving an interview about he gave up veganism and is going all carnivore?
Because people need to know, Dave.
Oh, do they? Do they? He's like, look, this dude's going to write another book. He's going to write another book and it's just going to be a money-making venture. And who knows what this dude's actually eating? Who knows if this dude's actually a survivalist?
Oh, he's not. So there was this thing that some behind the scenes that they set up some things within his survivalist show. Like, oh, he's out on this frozen lake. We're going to put this dead fish that we've already had for a while on the string, and then he's going to pull it up, and then boom, there's a fish there.
No, see, this is exactly my point. You don't know. And listen, just because some TV show or some article says that this person, such and such, is a survivalist, don't make them like you think they're special and you're not. Listen here, dear listener. That was weird. Pay attention, dear listener. You are a survivalist as well. Do you know how I know that? Because you're listening to my voice. Every day, you break the record for most consecutive days you've been alive.
Boom!
Congratulations. Stand up and take a bow. You deserve it.
You know who else is also a survivalist?
Who's that?
Well, there's a few people. Destiny's Child. I'm a survivor. Reba McEntire on the Reba McEntire show.
Gloria Gaynor.
Yeah, they all survive.
Yeah.
They sing about it.
They did it well. Cake also did it well.
Yes.
When they remade Gloria Gaynor's Survivor song, I Will Survive. But, you do too, Cody, because you're right here. You're alive. Your heart's beating. You did it. Congratulations. You're a survivor.
I'm telling you about Reba, Beyonce, and Cake.
You're a survivor. You're going to make it. What's the next lyric?
I'm going to work harder.
No, you're not. Okay, so Danielle, the other day when I came home from the station here, it was a long day, and a lot of them have been long recently. I was tired and maybe a little grouchy. It happens sometimes. The other day I yelled at someone in my car because they were going slow. And I had that immediate shame of, I'm sorry, Jesus. I'm sorry. I'm so broken. Like, I had that immediate thought of like, I really just got mad enough to yell at this guy who didn't know, of course.
Right.
But I yelled at him from the comfort of my own car because he cost me probably 30 seconds.
If that, yeah.
And I could have died 5 minutes later and that wouldn't have mattered at all. So that's always what I think of. Anyways, I came home. It was a long day. I was probably grouchy. And I walk in the front door and nobody is around. Like, you were doing some work, I think. And the older kids were all doing their thing. The only one present was our 4-year-old, Solomon. And he was sitting in the living room with just his tidy undies on.
That's how he spends most of his days.
Yeah, he doesn't feel the need to. He doesn't have shame. He doesn't mind going clothless.
No, yeah.
And he was sitting there.
He's a nudist at heart.
He was sitting there by the Alexa. And it was clear he was singing along to the music. And then he got like kind of that shy look when I walked in. But then he was like, he powered through and he kept on singing. And the song he was listening to was Jukebox Hero by Foreigner.
Jukebox Hero.
Oh, he calls it Jukebox Hero? I mean, the whole tenor of my day turned at that moment. I just smiled and it was just like my heart overflew. That's not a word. It overflowed with joy. And it was so weird because in that moment I tried to analyze it too. It's like, why does this make me so happy? Why does it make me so happy that my son is listening to enjoying a song that came out probably when I was his age or just after?
Yeah.
And liking this. He also, it's between, I was told later that he's been listening to that.
Oh my goodness.
Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley.
He has been rickrolling everyone all the time, all day long.
And so I'm wondering aloud, why does that make us so happy when our kids are into the things we were into? Why does that make us so happy?
I think just because sometimes I think with kids, it's hard to find relatable moments.
Yeah.
So like our oldest daughter's into stuff that like I was into, like some of the musicals and stuff she's into. And like, I don't know, it gives you a common ground. It gives you something to relate on.
Yeah, our oldest daughter is really into 80s culture.
Yeah.
Which, oh my goodness, I just love that she's really into 80s culture and 80s movies and TV and music.
Yes.
And again, yeah, that makes me feel so happy. And I think it is because it's getting more rare.
Yeah.
I mean, like, look, this wasn't, when I was a kid, I can remember, I loved comic books. It's something I talk about a lot, but I can remember my dad saying multiple times, why are you wasting your time with those things? And like when I tell you that those have informed my life in such a big way, and you think I'm joking, but I'm not you personally, but the listeners probably think I'm joking. I'm not joking. Comic books were a huge part of my life. And oh, by the way, the moral code that is presented by the story of the superhero is actually a good thing for kids. And anyways, I'm not getting into that. My point is that's not a new thing, but I think everything moves so much quicker now that we're seeing it even more and more, this inability as a parent and a kid to make this connection in pop culture.
Yeah.
Because more and more so everything, because time is moving so fast, there's so much more foreign to me now than I thought there would be when I'd be this age. It's kind of scary, actually.
You thought you'd be young at heart forever.
Yeah. And so I think that's why it makes me happy when my kids are into the things I was into.
Yeah.
So the obvious question is that for parents, like I'm aware that a lot of people that listen to our show and our podcast are younger than me. I attract younger people. I don't know why that would be.
You snagged me. I'm a whopping 5 years younger than you.
My maturity level has always been below my peers. And thus I fit in better with younger people. But
yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
The question that I think is the obvious question, that now that things do seem to move so fast and it's become even more difficult as a parent to connect with their children through the things we used to connect through. Like, do you know how lucky you are as a parent if you can do the Andy Griffith thing with your son as a dad? Like if your son will go fishing.
Yeah.
But like that was such a natural thing back then because time didn't really change much. The things you enjoyed were the things your children were going to enjoy. But now there's so many more options.
Well, yeah, because there weren't options.
Right. And so I think if you have something you can share with your kids and nothing I'm saying, you're like, well, Dave, I don't get any of this. I enjoy doing this with my kids and they enjoy doing it with me. You're either one, deluding yourself and your kid is somewhere going, whatever, nuh-uh. Or two, you're really lucky.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's the norm now. And the obvious question is as parents, how can we connect with our kids in this realm of pop culture? Like, when I say pop culture, I mean popular culture. Fishing was once a part of popular culture for men.
Yeah.
And girls. I'm sure there's girls out there like fishing.
My mom loves to fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, what's your advice, Danielle, on parents and how to connect with your children in this area?
So like the way I desire to spend my spare time now is much different than it was when I was 16 years old. Right now, I would prefer to sit around and read a book or something like that. But one thing as a parent I have started intentionally doing is like, if one of my kids asks me to play a game with them or asks me to watch a show with them or something like that, I try to do it because I think as parents, we have to be intentional about connecting with our kids because we can't put that expectation on them to be intentional about trying to connect with us. Like it can only go the other way. So I think that it's important that we just be intentional. But it's interesting to me that you bring up the choices, like talking about fishing, like there wasn't as many choices. I just had a conversation with someone the other day about like how much depression and anxiety we see in our young people today and just confusion about identity in general. Like, and one of the issues that came up that this other person mentioned was kids have so many choices now, and that's where the confusion comes from. It's just a really interesting thing to think about. Like this person mentioned, even like when I went to school, there was not a choice at lunchtime. It was, this is what was for lunch. There was not a choice about what snack to wear. He even mentioned so far as obviously he attended a school that had like a uniform dress code. He said there wasn't a choice about what to wear. Like choices, too many choices can create problems. And I think we're seeing that in our young people today. I think I kind of took that conversation in a direction maybe you weren't intending it to go, but
No,
it
no,
all came to mind just thinking about the choices that our kids have today and how that impacts the stress levels that they feel. Like, I mean, even our kids who are homeschooled, and like I have never once pushed our kids on an assignment like due date or whatever. Like I have always told them, I will work with you. We will get this, because I know they're not just spending their time messing around. Like if they were, it might be different, but I know they're trying. And so I have never once pressed like, this must be done at such and such time. And yet I can see, especially in our girls, that they feel like the weight of this stress that isn't really even there. Like it's not like deserved stress. You know what I mean? And yet they put that on themselves. And I do think it ultimately goes back to choices.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very interesting point, because the tendency as parents, as older generations, is that I am going to get frustrated and annoyed with my kids in the younger generation for not being like I was, not being able to make decisions, being confused, being that like, well, why can't you be more like me? Why can't you do this? Why can't you be more like our generation was? And I think you bring up an interesting point. Well, gee, Dave, because, or grandpa or whoever, when you were coming out of school, you had three choices. You're either going to go to college, you're going to go to the military, or you're going to pick up a trade.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
The choices were easier for us back then. Now they have choices for everything. You mentioned lunch even.
Yeah.
Like you didn't get to choose what you're having for lunch. They just gave you lunch. This is what we're having. And nowadays there's just so many choices of everything in your free time, of everything. There's 52 different genders. Can you imagine how overwhelming that is as a kid?
Yeah.
To grow up, and we all struggled with identity in our teenage years. Every single one of us.
I mean, I think some of us still do in our adult years.
Who am I going to be?
Yeah.
What am I going to be about? Now, understand that the kids in this generation, their choices have exploded by 1,000,000-fold.
Well, and I think it's so easy for us in our, 40s to sit around and be like, can you believe kids these days? Like, it's so ridiculous, And it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But like, I think it's easy to forget the world that they're growing up in and like how messed up it all is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much more. The internet has brought us so much information. Not all of it, it doesn't even matter what information's accurate or not. It's just information and data, and everyone is overwhelmed. And I think we need to remember that and lead with empathy with the younger generations before we lead with judgment.
Yeah.
So if we observe that the younger generations today growing up have infinite percentage more choices, and it's overwhelming. And in the gut reaction or the knee-jerk reaction we have as an older generation is like, well, these choices are fake. They're not real choices. The choices we had were the only real choices, and you must live this way. That's not constructive. That's not helpful.
Right.
That's not showing empathy to the younger generation. And I think we've missed the point of that, because the point isn't that, well, those aren't real choices, therefore they don't exist. Like, no, to them they exist. To people out in reality walking through life, you may not think they're real choices, but they do, and that means in their world it's very much a true and viable choice. I think the big thing we need to do as older generations, and what is it about the older generation that we can contribute? That's wisdom.
Right.
Wisdom of life lived. We have more life lived. And I think the wisdom here would say, quit trying to convince the younger generation that these choices they're trying to choose from, some of them aren't real choices, and instead say, focus on the importance of your choices and how they affect the people around
you. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that's the one lie that culture is trying to just pound into the human species in our civilization right now that your choices are somehow just about you.
Right.
That you follow your dreams, follow your heart, and because it's your life. But the wisdom of life lived will tell you that no. Here's the real truth that I've experienced is that your choices always matter to the people around you. They always affect the people around you. You can't get away from that. And I learned that from studying the story of my great-great-great-great-grandfather. And I stood at his grave and I had this epiphany because he made this huge, hard choice to come to America. He lost a kid on the way. And yet here I am as a Rimbolt,
right,
standing at his grave.
Because of the choices he made.
With my kids, because of a choice he made that he probably regretted. You don't lose a kid and not think about regretting that choice.
Or at least question whether it was right or wrong. Yeah.
But it landed on me at that moment that no. All of our choices had mattered. All of his choices directly affected me here 5 generations later or 6 generations later. They all affected me. And so that's what I'm saying is we just don't understand the heaviness and the gravity of every choice I make affects the people around me and the people to come. Those choices ripple out for generations. And so everything we do, we should spend more time thinking about our choices.
Right.
And it's not these choices don't matter. It's no, actually they matter way more than you think.
Right. And I think it's super important to, we were talking about young people. I think it's super important to teach our young people that their choices do matter. They do have a ripple effect. They do affect other people, while also exhibiting some level of respect and understanding to be able to say like, oh, hey, I personally have no idea what it's like to be 16 years old in the year 2023. I have no idea what your life is like, what the pressures that you're feeling are. I don't understand that. I can't understand that. I can see it. I can observe it. I can make judgment calls based on what I'm seeing, but I don't know what it's like to live that.
So if that's the problem, if that's the disconnect, how do we help that? I've got 2 answers: meals and road trips. I'm in. You have meals together as a family.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I have direct experience with both of the alternatives here. I grew up with a family that did not have dinners together at the table, and it led to a large disconnect between my parents and myself.
Yeah.
It's just the way. I can't explain that any other way. I'm not saying anybody was the bad guy in that. I'm just saying what was.
It's just the way it was.
You have meals together as a family, and you talk about your days, and you therefore get to know each other better, and you make that connection stronger. Road trips are another good way to do that. And I would even say smaller familial groups in the road trips.
Yeah.
So I took a road trip with my oldest daughter to North Dakota for a Rimbolt family reunion. That time I spent with her in the car is some of the best time that I've spent with her.
Yeah.
Because we get to know each other better. You've taken trips with one of our kids.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's so important, especially when you have multiple kids.
Yes.
To get not only the meal time where we're all together, but then take times with, in particular, one of your kids, 2 of your kids, get them together, spend that time with them. And their time, like, so if you have lots of activities, you're going to need to make lots of road trips.
Yeah.
It happens.
Right. Right.
So you can do that in your busy life.
I mean, the point boils down to, like, just like with the Lord, like, it takes time to get to know the Lord. It takes time and effort to get to know your kids. And, like, you've got to put that time in, or you're going to just kind of lose track of them to the world.
So it may be harder now, but it is doable. It's possible. And in a big sense, I think a lot of why society is struggling is because we can work on our connections always. It may be harder now, but we can still try and work on them. I think what we're finding is that we don't want to work on them.
Well, and I think, like, a lot of people would say, well, we're too busy. We're too busy for that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a very real time then to challenge yourself and question, are we intentionally making ourselves too busy? Are there things that we need to cut out of our lives because the future of our children's well-being or our family's well-being depends upon this time. Are we giving our time over to things that really don't matter in the long run when we should be giving them over to things that could potentially have eternal impact on the lives of our children? That's a tough question because we live in a busy culture.
Yep, it's true. Hey everybody, Dave here. What you have just listened to are bits and pieces of our radio show. We have a radio show on KFEX Firescape Radio located in Chanute, Kansas. You can hear that show from noon to 4 every weekday. So if you want to tune into that, you can go to www.kfex931.com, or you can search KFEX in your app store on your smartphone and find their totally free app there. If you're a fan of Christian music, you might like to listen to our live show when you're at work, or if you're a stay-at-home mom and you like music in the house, you may love to listen to that during the day. So give it a try. We would also direct you to our podcast, Pop Culture Pastor. That's probably why you're listening anyways to this version of what we do. As always, subscribe to the podcast, follow us on our social medias on Facebook and Twitter. It helps us out when you share it, when you review and rate us on our podcast homes. And of course, follow us on social media and share our stuff there. So thank you so much for listening. We love all of you guys so much. We have such a great community of listeners, and we'll see you when the regular pod drops on Friday.